Once upon a time, a young man with crazy hormones named Kinsey, who was getting ready to move to college, carrying with him a PSP, an adult magazine, a notebook and a hard drive, exclaims that he is all set. Z comments that he studied non-stop, but was able to pass the exams to pass the university with great difficulty, so he exclaims that from now on he will be able to enjoy freedom. He happily claims that he won't have to listen to his parents nagging, nor will he have to put up with his lazy older sister. He was still talking when someone knocks at the door of his room, so he quickly closes the suitcase with the immoral contents. At that moment, Z's voluptuous sister enters with great excitement. She exclaims with joy that she had come to fetch him. He looks at her in horror, and instantly she throws herself on him in a loving embrace, while asking him if he was surprised or happy. However, he asks her as if in disgust to get off him or he will be in trouble, so she asks him in annoyance why he treats her like that. But he just sighs, and after calling her weird, asks her why she wasn't in his bed slacking like a pig. An insult that annoyed his sister as he continued to complain. However, she annoyingly slaps him with both hands and starting to pull his cheeks protests that she has no authority to talk to him like that, even though he has graduated from school, offering to take him to college. Z yells at her that he doesn't need her, and scared he asks her why she was being so nice to him, completely distrusting her. But she replies that she doesn't want to argue and immediately pulls him out, grabbing him by the neck with his head close to her melons. On the way out, he yells to his parents that it is not convenient for a boy and a girl to be together like that, questioning them not to do anything. Hearing that, his mother agrees with him and asks Baobao to take her brother to college, so she obeys, but he is surprised and asks her what she was doing. So she smilingly tells him that she will take him, but he exclaims that he doesn't need her. In the end, he agrees to let her take him, so she was going too cheerful, but he is still doubtful of what his sister wants to do. But at that they arrive at the university, something that left him surprised, but he says to himself that maybe he thought too much. But he was still overconfident when his sister suddenly sped up, leaving him shocked. He yells at Baobao to wait, claiming that he was going in the opposite direction. However, she replies that she already knows she will leave him there later. So he claims that he shouldn't have trusted her. The two begin to argue in the car, before which Baobao threatens to speed up like crazy, a threat that scares Z, and showing more submissive he asks her what she plans to do. They arrive at a hotel room, and when they open the door, she tells him that they will unpack his luggage and then she will take him to school. He is appalled and questions her for not being nice, besides having offered to take him when he could have stayed overnight. She toxically obliges him by saying that she would send a picture of his luggage to his parents, so he angrily complies. Upon entering, he asks her again what she intends to do, whereupon she comments that it won't be good to stay at the university, since starting the day there is a disaster. Plus, they will be a very bad influence on him. Whereupon she exclaims that she is a lady and it will be better if he stays with her. He is shocked for a moment, but replies that he is tired of seeing her face, so he claims that he wants to have new experiences, a response that ended up annoying his sister. So she applies a woman's most secret weapon, opting for tenderness and inferiority to dominate him. And after calling him by name, she comments that she is a weak woman who will be living alone. But he places his hand on her face and orders her to stop. However, she insists that it is not convenient for her to stay alone, commenting that she has a very large house and it will be difficult to keep it neat and with supplies. He advises her to find someone to do it for her, but she shows him the kitchen so spotless that she would be embarrassed to use it, to which he replies that she should learn to cook herself. Seeing that she only wanted him as a housewife, he asks her annoyed if she has any other reason. So she comments that she is very pretty, and almost crying she asks him what she could do on her own if not someone tries to do something to her. But Z doesn't care about all this drama and says goodbye to her. Baobao grabs his suitcase and threatens to shout that he was a forcer, so he tiredly tells her that he can't break the university's rules. When his sister heard that, she hugged him and told him that it was not a problem, because his father had arranged it and everything was approved. The latter ended up leaving him cold with shock, so he immediately called his father to comment that he wants to stay in college. His father clears his throat and orders him to just live with his sister because they will be worried about leaving her living alone. He protests because of the college rules, so his father tells him that he can go several times to the college rooms if he wanted to. However, he comments that his sister will supervise him and help him study because he is a Mensa. And since he is a Mensa, they don't trust the bad influences at the college, and although his sister is also Mensa, she is better at studies than he is. That upset him a little, and he inadvertently raised his voice to his father to protest, but his father responds firmly if he had any complaints, making him sweat. He gets scared and asks her not to change the subject, and nervously asks her if it is because they are not biological siblings. After that, Z puts it in context, telling him that once when he was a child he heard his mother talking to an unknown person and mentioned this, that he and Beaba were not blood brothers. When he heard that news it left him too shocked and scared, so he went crying and told his older sister at that time. Beaba approached her with a smile and told her that he would tell her a secret, confessing that he was from an agreement with the phone caller and that he should not tell or he would be sold. This traumatized him for a long time, and he remembers that dissenting with his head he pleads that he will not tell anyone, so she asked him to keep the secret. But her father only replies firmly that what's done is done, and that it's all for her sake, so poor Z just sighs and replies that they thought things out too fast, so she asks him why he planned all that so fast with her sister. But there is only an uncomfortable silence, and then she hangs up on him, but he didn't want to stay like that and tries to call back. But his sister stops him, and after ordering him to make the food he goes to sleep. Before that he shouts, asking how many years she intended to keep him under her yoke, but in this they lasted 3 years. The house was a complete mess, and it is noted that it lacks a good cleanliness to that house. But we see that he enjoyed it quite a lot, because there were bottles of liquor and on his pectorals there were kiss marks. However, he was still sleeping when his sister calls him, knocking on the door very loudly. He wakes up with a headache. Surprised to be in his bed, he shouts to his sister to tell her what he wants. She insistently tells him that she is hungry and to hurry, so he hurriedly gets dressed, but in the process asks her to starve and he will be relieved. However, he steps on a box which causes him to fall and give himself a fatal blow to the head, after which he would be taken to a plane full of mystical cubes. When his subconscious reacts, he wonders where he was, but a voice tells him that he is in an unknown linked subspace, to which he surprised asks who had said that, but the voice again turns to him and asks if he was ready. He frightened again asks who was there and that he was going to start. However, the system only comments that it will do it automatically because all the data was locked. He scared and shaken asks what that system was and what it was going to update. But after the scare, he wakes up again on the floor of the room in his sister's house, completely terrified. Then he wonders why he doesn't have a headache if he had a good one. So he wonders if he dreamt the whole thing, an effect of the fatigue his sister has subjected him to. So after opening the curtains and stretching, he leaves his room, and after seeing the mess, he gets ready to clean up. While he was cleaning up, he grabs a pair of leggings and disgustedly asks his sister if his friends could stand it and orders him to clean up his own mess. After grumbling, he finishes cleaning up. Exhausted and sweaty, he washes his face. Already refreshed, he puts on his apron and gets ready to cook. Once finished, he goes and enters his sister's room, but the smell of liquor makes him nauseous, which causes him to question her for not acting like a lady. After opening the curtains of her room, he tells her that he has already prepared her breakfast, but she, tucked from head to toe, does not give him great importance. So he groans within himself because his sister had turned 25 and made too big a party. Z remembers that the day before, he was doing what any guy with free time does, playing video games. When his sister walked in the door with much exultation, he comments to her that he will celebrate his birthday and that he would do something big, so she was going to need him. He knew she was just going to call her friends to party, but the girl doesn't know how to drink, so she drags him to help her when she's drunk. But when that happens, she exposes him to her friends so they can bother him and do whatever they want with him. This is how he is forced to drink and to be kissed by the girls. All that bothers him, and protesting with his sister, he takes off the sheet, shouting that he did not put up with all that during the night and will not let her sleep. When he does that, he finds a very uncomfortable scene, because his sister was dressed in very compromising clothes, which makes it impossible for him not to look away. He is shocked by the crazy way she usually sleeps, but she gets up and blushes and questions him because she didn't think it was like that. He teases her for wearing a perky bra, asking when she learned about fashion or if any man taught her, but she throws a pillow in his face, exclaiming that no one has trained her, as she has never been on a date, labeling herself a failure. He coldly replies to her to just be herself, ordering her to get up and go to breakfast. So Beaba cries because even he didn't notice her charm, regretting that she can't catch any man's attention, but he just throws the pillow in her face. When she leaves his room, she reproaches him for everything her friends did to her. So he asks her why she goes too far, but she reproaches him for being out of line, questioning him that she cleaned up the mess from days before when he fainted, commenting that many of her friends had to call their partners to pick them up and those who did not have a partner had to wait for a cab, claiming that she had to do everything until 3:30 so she could sleep. But changing the subject, she comments that she had woken up hungry, preparing to grab her breakfast. However, he objects by slapping her hand, commenting that she deserves it and orders her to clean herself well before eating. She seems to be obedient. However, she is quite cunning and takes advantage of his carelessness to take bread and like a child runs to hide, so he missed the flip-flop he threw at her. He then tells her to act more like a big sister, but she gives him a middle finger gesture and replies that he is a hormone-crazed puberty boy for staring at her, so he has no right to scold her. He lets out a nervous laugh, but then sighs. Z comments that since he can remember, his sister is the spoiled princess of his parents, but he was scolded and beaten for everything. He compares that to a relationship as different as heaven and hell, because he noticed how his sister was planned, while he was just because he was. On one occasion, he protested to them if they spoiled her so much for being so pretty, to which his father replied that they should be stricter with him for being a man. This difference in the way they were raised marked him so much that he stopped caring about what his parents expected of him. And while life does not stop beating him, his sister has blessed her, giving her beauty and intelligence. So he finishes his breakfast grumbling. And annoyed, he yells at his sister how much she needs to be in the bathroom and if she needed him to help her flush the toilet. But at that moment, she comes out of the bathroom and mockingly replies that girls need more time to clean themselves, something that makes him bristle. He then shows her his phone, questioning that he was too late and that he will be late because he has a lot of things to do before he leaves. So this delay will cost him $300, which is equivalent to the cost of a week of his life. At that, he questions her because she has no use for being so smart, but she makes a mockery again and comments that with her natural beauty she doesn't need makeup. However, he reproaches her that she will be late, and that will have a cost of living, but he is shocked to hear that she had quit, so he asks in shock when it happened. She replies that she had done it the day before, so he shocked replies that she had not mentioned anything to him, but she only excuses that she was too busy with her birthday and forgot to tell him. Z shocked takes her by the shoulders and asks her why she had done it if she was doing it right, so he angrily asks if her boss was hitting on her. However, she is shocked and taking him by the hand comments that it's a good excuse to tell her parents, so she takes him up on it. However, he ends up quite confused to see her so smiling, and making an annoyed face he asks her if she wants him to keep the secret. At the same time, he questioned her that it was a job that paid too well, so he wants to know what made her do that or if she wanted to starve. She gives him a tender face and tells him that she hopes she can trust him to do something. He can't help but be shocked and protest that he can't do that because he is still studying. He also scolds her for doing that to her father, who keeps bragging about her to her relatives and that she has just ranked among the best companies in the world, asking if she wants him to have a heart attack. To this she replies that during her birthday she realized that she is no longer a child and will soon turn 30, so she doesn't want to waste away like an office mouse. So she decided to be brave and break her chains, and with great emotion exclaims that she will pursue her true dreams. He annoys her, saying that at some point she will become as old as grandma, one of the biggest offenses for a woman. So she angrily threatens him with a slice of bread while exclaiming that she wants to be a young girl forever. Z says to himself that he is starting to feel bad for her, so turning away from his crazy sister, he asks her what her dream is. To that question, she excitedly replies that she wants to become a superstar, a goddess. However, that attitude was not strange at all for him, remembering that her only difficult event is that she was teased by her high school classmates because of her name. To be honest, it seems like the whole relationship of the siblings and how they were raised is a bit shoehorned in, and it lacks some structure. Because at one point the prota goes off on a blow to the head, and it seems like something will happen that will change his life, but it doesn't seem to transcend that issue. The weird attitude of the prota's parents, as well as the very unnatural way his sister behaves, and his issues at the end of this chapter, that she's talking about wanting to be a goddess. But he remembers that the only bad thing she went through was being teased about her name. I bet whatever you want a flashback is coming now. Indeed, we start to see a flashback of how her classmates teased her for being an obedient child and calling herself a baby, which made her angry. So she annoyingly took a ledger and tried to change her name. However, when she tried to do so, an agent asked her why she wanted to do that, to which she annoyingly replied that it's because she didn't like it, since there was no compelling reason, and her parents had not accompanied her to validate her request. The staff there called her parents to charge her. That resulted in one of the few times Z saw her parents discipline her sister. To things like this, I mean, this shoehorns things in. They didn't care that the girl was being bullied in class, and to give a strange justification to the girl's personality, they do these things. Indeed, Z says that after entering high school, her sister changed her personality and became a master of deception, but because of her appearance, she was stalked by a guy. On one occasion, this guy approached her and commented that she has potential to be a superstar. At the same time, he had a poster that said her body would change the world. You don't have to be a genius to start suspecting this guy. But Beabao was surprised to hear that, so he asked her to touch her face and then exclaimed that she has the softness, quality, and beauty of a girl who will change the world. All those flattery left her shocked and she was fooled by that. But obviously her parents didn't agree with her, so they locked her in the room. So she, all annoyed, starts to force the door and shout that they were fighting with something that was inevitable and demanded that they let her out and become a superstar. Her parents padlocked her in the room, while her mother fearfully explained to her that the world was full of bad people, so she shouldn't trust that guy as he might be trying to trick her into doing immoral content. The girl from inside the room yells at them that they were jealous of her beauty, and since they didn't care how she felt, they were just abusing their power as parents. This act of insubordination on her part caused them to become angry with her, and taking their disciplinary tools, they entered Beabao's room, causing a ruckus, while Z watched from outside. What a way to damage a character in one chapter, because it is absurd their attitude against her, because it was based on the fact that they did not discipline her and only pampered her. When he heard what she told him, he was too surprised, and replied with exultation that he did not expect that she really wanted to take up that dream again, questioning that it had been many years and yet she did not stop thinking about it. So somewhat more sulked, he asks her what's so good about being a superstar, since fame was something superficial and the real life of those people is too busy and full of regret, making an allegory. He tells her that she is a small seed trying to be a big tree in the middle of a huge forest. But she replies that her name will spread in the world, so he shocked changes the allegory and tells her that she is like a small mushroom and that people will bury her. So she starts to throw a tantrum to convince him. However, he does not fall for it and tells her that he will call his father. When she heard that, she is alarmed and asks him to wait and pounces on her brother, pinning him to the ground. He coldly replies that he doesn't care how her father punishes her, but he must report that to her, or else he will be the one punished, rising from the ground while pushing her in the face. She goes crazy and yells that she won't let him call his parents, but when she tries to call her father, the system gives her a message with a main mission, which is to get Beabao a contract with a superstar company, and in return they would give him 300 points, but if he fails they would subtract 100. Message that left him surprised, so much so that he wonders to himself if he was dreaming. But his sister, taking advantage of his distraction, approaches him from behind and after snatching the phone begins to laugh. Z struggles with his sister to take it away, but she moves away from there making a mockery, so he gets nervous and tries to think how to make her change her mind and leave that dream so unrealistic, since only her parents can stop her. So he decides to threaten her and asks her not to blame him, because she cannot beat him. However, she, all proud and foolish, asks him who had decided that, and with much evil and cunning, keeps his brother's phone between his melons in order to challenge him to try to do something, but threatens to accuse him with his father. Cornered, he wonders how he could fix that, so he had to persuade her to talk, to which she is defensive, so he tricks her that they should talk about her dream since he wants to support her. Before that, she agrees. He tells her that he must have gone for that dream at his best, since it is very late, since he is already 25. This annoyed her too much and she even tried to protest. Alarmed, Z tried to reassure her by telling her that she can no longer act like a young woman, so he asks her what ability she has, asking if she could beat a celebrity in singing or dancing, to which she only says. So he tells her that she only has to dedicate herself to being an immoral film actress, but asks her if she wants her privacy to be invaded by others and interpret scenes with old, green and smelly words that scare Beabao. After that, he tells her everyone wants the benefits of being a superstar, but advises her that it will be like facing millions alone. However, she replies that she always gets good scores in exams facing millions. He sighs tiredly and asks her to be realistic, because she is good academically, but the other thing is acting and skill, which many developed in 4 years, so he asks her to face him because he is already 25. She clings, saying that she has a good appearance, but he comments that that is nothing, because there are many more handsome than her, so he questions her if she can defend herself in that industry with only her face. Beabao seems to accept what his brother is saying, and at the same time becomes sad, but at that moment a message comes out of the system telling him that he was wrong. The voice of the system tells him that in another world you don't need to have acting skills to make a superstar, you just need to have a pretty face to make anyone famous. Z gets up in horror and asks with great exclamation who he was, something that left his sister confused. The voice of the system asks him not to be so nervous, that this is an artificial intelligence that has been traveling through time and space and now lives inside his head. Then the astral plane full of cubes unfolds again and he, surprised, asks him if he was inside his head. The AI responds that it is not quite so, because nobody in that world could understand his intentions. So to make it clearer, you tell her to think of her as a trap for the main characters of a comic. After that clarification, he understood, more or less, the situation. That clearly surprised the AI since it was too fast and weird. But his sister's voice makes him react again in the normal world because she asks him what he had understood and why he was talking to himself. He gets nervous and tells her that he has to go to the hospital to ask for a suggestion, and rushes out of the apartment and says goodbye, leaving his cell phone behind. However, as he descends the stairs, he begins to freeze until he falls on a sofa. His confused sister asks him what he was doing by slowly approaching him. Z turns to look at her, horrified, and hesitating asks his older sister to save him because he needs to be rescued. That makes his sister ask him if he was crazy and what happened to him. At that, he tries to tell her that there was something in his head, but the system takes control and makes him respond that everything was fine. Alarmed, Z exclaims that he had not said that and demands the AI to show himself. However, she asks him to try to stay calm and tells him that the amount of cubes in the astral plan were hosts in his time, and that sooner or later he will end up getting used to it, advising him to finish the first mission and receive the reward. The AI was going to tell him what happened if he failed, so You've Scared asks him if they were going to live him, but the guide only responds that he would not only change hosts. That reassured him. But the AI then says that when he leaves a body, the host will dry out because that system will drain them of all their energy, so it asks if he's sure he wants it to leave. That alarms him again, and Scared asks him what will happen next, and the system responds that it will leave him in a vegetable state, which makes him scared to hear that. So he changes his attitude and tells him that he would be fascinated to work with him. But after sighing, he asks if he will not eat his brain, and how the system responds no. He agrees and asks what he should do. So the system resumes time by giving him 3 hours to finish and tending him with the mission of helping his sister get into a superstar company. He, alarmed, asks his sister if she wanted to work in the entertainment industry, because if so he will help, exclaiming that he will be her greatest support, and motivates her to do so. Bayabao asks her, scared, if she had had a problem with her brain and exclaims to call emergency. He asks her to hang up, but she refuses, so he pulls her hard and takes the cell phone, hanging it. She protests and confronts him for daring to play dirty, and throws herself on him to try to take his phone. However, he asks her to stop wasting time and go back to business. However, she demands back her phone so she can leave it, but he insists that you will let her become a celebrity. Bayabao is surprised and asks him, annoyed, if he did not play with her. He exclaims that he is not lying to me. However, she does not trust him much, but he should not insist much, so that she ends up believing that he helped her, getting excited about this. So after getting rid of his sister, he yells at her to go back to business. He comments that it is not easy to enter the entertainment, so he asks her to let him think, but his sister asks him not to think too much, because he should only cover her and not treat her, because he already has everything planned. Something that took him by surprise. So his sister confesses that she had already expressed her desire to her former boss, and he had connections with a company that sponsors stars, telling him that he has an audition that day at 10. Z is shocked to hear that his brother had everything ready, and that he only told him so he wouldn't be a snitch. Annoyed by that, he calls his sister a very cunning woman because she just wanted to drag him into it. However, he begins to question how he could help her if only a university student, and did not have many resources to support her, and assumes that this system has some connection with this entertainment industry, which makes the difficulty of the mission is greatly reduced. However, he can't help but feel like a little hero in an RPG game that has just started its game and has to face the biggest villain of it. But in turn, this villain only has 1 life point. Seeing him so lost and distant, she begins to make gestures on his face to react. He asks her to go get ready because it will take her about an hour and a half to be ready, so she gets up very happy and leaves to get ready. While he waited, his sister asks him which bra he should choose according to his taste, so the nervous chooses one and his sister decides to wear the other, something that makes him annoy. Then she asks her about the stockings, which makes her angry and yells at her to hurry up, but she already answers that she is very nervous, so he decides to help her dress in a more formal way and not dress so crazy. After a while, she ends up dressed as an office woman and asks him how she fits, but the blushing replies that he already sees himself with a normal person. However, she asks him why he was avoiding eye contact, and he gives a basic excuse and flattery, but that by his sister's standards works. After that, they leave the apartment in the car. Z ponders if he had done well, but in that his sister takes off her heels and he annoys her, saying that her legs stink. So she protests, saying that she washed them well and even brings them to her face. However, she comments that she is in good spirits and will not argue, causing the car to start. While his sister was moving through traffic, Z asks the system in his head what it was exactly, so I will be answering that it is a universal calculation system, which he did not understand. And the system itself comments that no one could give him a way to define it. So he decides to expose his desire, and is to know all existence in the universe. That makes him ask what his brain has to do with all that. The excuse the system gives him is that it's a random selection in every world he visits. When Z heard he was in other worlds, he was fascinated by that. The system begins to talk things about time and space, parallel multiverses, and how the universe is infinitely huge, which is precisely the fact that makes it so interested in investigating all those dimensions, and that each host is a man who has been influential in that generation. When he hears this, he asks if he will become a star, an immortal being, or a divinity. The system responds that there are worlds in which it can happen, that in that world none of that can happen, so the emotion of Z goes down to the ground. So disappointed, he insults him for not being able to fulfill his own fantasy and asks him what his point is. So, the system gives him a review of how his unfortunate life was in the past, and that, although his sister becomes someone, he will continue to have a mediocre life, news that depressed him a lot. The system tells him that it can help him change his life, so he calms down and asks what he can do, asks him to call the system screen since he was in a tutorial. When Z makes the screen appear, he discovers that he needs credits, and the artificial intelligence tells him that to earn them he has to work and complete the missions, because he will not be given away the benefits he will get. He continues to investigate how that system works and how the missions will appear according to the desires that his heart really longs for. At the same time, the artificial intelligence explains that he can choose not to do the missions and lose credits. He saw an extra mission section and was analyzing them when something suddenly pulls his cheek. Taking advantage of the fact that they were at a red light, Beabao asks her why she was moving her arms like crazy. He, putting on an annoyed face, exclaimed that he was just thinking, and scolds her, ordering her not to take her eyes off the front while driving. She shouts that she is aware of that, but exclaims what she was thinking of sending him to an asylum earlier, so he, confused, asks her what she was talking about. However, she only avoids the answer and looks away to maintain a sad look, which makes him sad, commenting that she only has a horrible personality and a face that sweetens her, telling that she has always been very pretty since she was young. Even in her school she always received love letters, which makes him question why he looks so simple compared to her, because according to him they do not even share the same genes. Fast forward, and while he was thinking about all this, they arrived at the headquarters of the Zingy Entertainment Agency, or industry, which is one of the top 10 entertainment companies that have a number of artists under their command. While he observes the building, exclaims that there are many high-level artists, and that the entire building is like a being for them. He was still thinking about this when his sister makes a surprise skid to leave the car park, leaving him quite happy because it was a perfect turn, while he was upset because she already has her license for 5 or 6 years when she was in high school. Telling also that every Sunday she takes her father's car and forces him to be part of his salary because she claims to have no money, and how the two have dinner together cannot prevent people from looking at him with contempt. So he holds back the tears, remembering that it's not half the horrible things she does to him, and in that she puts her foot on his nose, so that he annoyingly asks her what was wrong and that her foot sucked. She makes a mockery of him and orders him to put his shoes on her. This took him by surprise, but he immediately yells at him why he would do something like that. So she, with a smile of superiority, asks him who was the one who kept him for 5 years, ordering him to tone down the way he spoke to her. He gets nervous, but in the end he obeys and pulls her foot very hard, and she asks him with surprise what he was doing, asking him to slow down because his feet are soft. So he protests and yells at her to stop moving because he wants to help her. Beabao goes down with great determination from the car, while Z goes down, checking that they arrived half an hour in advance, reflecting that he still has 2 hours to finish the mission, so he feels confident that he has time. Thus the two brothers set off very decisively and confidently to audition Beabao in the Zing entertainment industry. Upon entering, they could see a large number of people dressed very elegantly and with brand clothes, making him surprised, because he sees one pass very close to him, resplendent in his elegant suit, while he went with some dirty rags and possibly vomited. But that's what his sister goes by and scolds him, and with a confident look, although frightened, she tells him in a mocking tone to raise his gaze if he does not want to embarrass her, proceeding to walk very confidently and elegantly while humming, which makes him happy. We go to the receptionist and asks her for sure where they held the auditions, a question that she already answers with great kindness, saying the exact floor, the exact saga, and I advise her to use the elevator. When they were about to do it, since the elevator had reached the first floor to assemble many, but when Z was about to do it, she grabs him by the hand and stops him, surprising him. This, when he turned to see her, she looked at him firmly and with concern, so he confused and comments that there is still space, although it may be somewhat tight. So she tells him in his ear with whispers that if they enter there, someone could touch one of his bubbles. An exalted Z tries to question this madness, but seeing her so scared and suspicious, he succumbs to her, remembering that a time where she would go home by train after school, and a guy always teased her, and although the guy ended up with his thing completely shattered by her kicking, she was left with the trauma of not getting on in two tight places. Then a guy asks him with a shout if he was not going to enter. Do not waste their time. But he only looked painfully at his sister and apologetically leaves in the middle of the elevator. This action impressed her sister and at the same time would steal a smile from seeing that her brother managed to understand her for once. After that, they arrived at room 7F where a woman would help them find the boardroom. So Beabao, very happy and excited, hugs his brother, but he disgusted questions her about this and asks her to release him. In the boardroom, there were several trying to go over their scripts and getting ready. They would be approached by a beautiful woman by Z's standards, so he tries to greet her, annoying his sister. But the woman sweats from him and heads to talk to Beabao, asking for his resume and his ticket. The woman would confirm that she was on the list. The woman goes to Z and asks him to wait there for a moment, so he somewhat embarrassingly agrees. However, the woman looks away without giving it more importance. After that, he sits on a couch, quite upset, so his sister teasingly asks him why he had been angry. He replies that that girl didn't even notice him. Then she arrogantly exclaims that it is because she was looking at the protagonist. But in that, he interrupts her by biting her rib and asks her to act more serious because she is very relaxed, and also to analyze her rivals who are not very different from her, so he advises her to prepare. Beabao grabs him by the cheeks and asks him to worry if she is the one who is going to audition. What he did not know is that he was worried about himself because if she failed, he failed his mission, then he went out of his way. However, he stops her by telling her that they were all watching, so he very sweetly greets them by cajoling all the men and annoying all the girls, who begin to murmur about her. And we'll see what happens in the next video. Hit the like button and subscribe if you like it and if you want the next part. Write in the comments the word superstar. Thanks for watching.